Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Prairie and I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer with Talend. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Talend Cloud environments. We're going to be looking at how to publish jobs from Studio into the Talend Cloud environment. But more specifically, we're going to be looking at how to build promotion pipelines so the jobs we've built can be promoted from lower level environments to higher level environments, thinking about going from, say, dev to test to stage, or stage to production. And along the way, we'd also be examining how to manage context. So as we execute the jobs within the different environments, those context variables can all be carried along with. So thanks for joining. This is going to be a very exciting session. And a lot of the content we're going to be covering today can be found on an article on the Talend website. If you go to talend.com and do a search, this is written by Reka, and it does go into SDLC best practices with Talend Integration Cloud. It's a very great read article, quick to read, but this video really takes it and puts it into a video format. But you can always reference this article as well. Looking at this diagram, we do have Studio where and I'm assuming that everybody watching this video is somewhat familiar with Studio. If not, you might look around for some videos that explain Talend Studio as a development environment for integration jobs. Now we can build flows in Studio and publish that into Talend Cloud, and within Talend Cloud we can create promotion pipelines so the jobs we built from one environment can be seamlessly moved to higher level environments, and along with testing until we have something we can run in production. Okay, so first thing, we're gonna switch into our Talend Cloud and log in. And the first step we'll be looking at is how to set up environments within the Talend Cloud account. So once we have a Talend Cloud account, we log in. We do have environments that are available here. I have quite a bit. So the first thing that we want to do is to be able to set up our environments. And I'm gonna set up two environments which we're gonna use for the sake of this demonstration. So the first environment that I'll set up would be my dev environment that we're gonna use. We wanna give it a workspace name. I usually just like to keep the workspace the same as the environment name. You can have a different workspace name, but I'll just keep that the same. The owner, of course, is me. We can allocate cloud engines for that environment. You can go 1 or 2 depending on what you want to use. If you have cloud engines, you can allocate them there. And always a good idea to give it a good description. Okay, so let's save that, and our environment has been saved and created, and we have it a dev environment here. Let's do one, and this next one we're gonna do would be the production environment. Okay, so the user stays the same. Cloud engines, I'm just gonna leave them all 0 for now. And then we give it a name. All right, now we have our two environments which we can use. So for the sake of checking, I can go into the environment. We can see the workspace. You can see the details within the environment. If you allocate cloud engines, you can see all of those within your environment. Now, I wouldn't go into the details of cloud engine. I'm assuming that we're all familiar with those. So we have the two environments. And the idea being, once we do our development from, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, I'm going to be working within the dev. And eventually, once my work is done, I want to quickly promote those to production. And how can we do that in a very seamless fashion? That's really what this demonstration would be helping us with. Now, we're gonna reset this and switch over to our Studio environment. So, Studio is where, as we're familiar with Talend, this is where we do our workflows and our jobs. So in this case, I have a workflow here that does some ELT push down into Snowflake. So I have some customer information in Snowflake. I have some others information in Snowflake, and I'm trying to do some analytics to figure out what are my customers ordering. So basically orders by customer. Again, I wouldn't go into the details of the job. I'm assuming that we're all familiar with Talend, and really just focus on the environment and what the promotion pipeline looks like. If anyone's interested in looking at doing ETL into Snowflake, feel free to leave a comment below, or definitely reach out to one of the Talend resources from talend.com, and we should be able to help you with that. All right, so we have this job, and it's running and pulling some data into my Snowflake account. So there are a couple of things I really want to call out with this job, and this really goes into some of the best practices once we're building jobs and workflows, is to make them very dynamic and easy for us to move across environments, so we don't have to hard code strings. As you can imagine, within this job, I'm connecting to Snowflake. I'm using the Snowflake connection here. Now, I don't want to hand code that. Also, this component, I'm writing to a table within Snowflake, and I'm making things a little bit dynamic. So as I'm moving from one environment to another environment, things are dynamic. And how do I do that? The capability we have in Talend for that is called context variables. And so context variables is really what allows us to make things that change across environments into context variables. So as we do our promotions, we can quickly change that without having to build our jobs. To create a context, we can come in here and create a new context. Give it a name. And we can add values to this context. So I can say, if I was working with a file, I could give a file name. If I was working with a database and I needed the connection string, of course, those are things that needs to change often. You can make those into context. All right, and then of course we can always give values to this context. So just give it the value here. You can give it the path wherever that file is. So this will be your path to your file. If this is your database, you can give it your database string here. And what is really important once we get to this point is being able to set up the different environments that can have different contexts. So I can set up one for dev, and I'm doing this really quick. I've already done it, but I just want to show us how we're doing it here. So test, and prod. All right, so now we can have different variables with different values for the different environments we will be working with. And when the job runs, we can now tell it which environment we're running in and dynamically pass these values. Very important, right? Because the last thing we want to do is hand code these values and having to open up the job and change it as we're going from an environment to environment. So I'm going to cancel this because I already did it. I created one for company properties, and basically what this holds, it holds the company name. So you can think about this as being your organization. And I have two environments, dev and prod. And for the variables, I have two variables. One which is of course the company name, and one just to tell us what environment we're working with. And the reason for that is, in this job, as we looked at this component, as we're loading our data into a Snowflake table, I'm passing this variable. I'm referencing this variable which has been defined in the context, so that once this table is created, it can pull this variable name, and depending on the environment we're working in, that value will change. Okay, and how do we make that available within the context? We can simply go, let's say I was working on my S3, I was trying to write some things to S3. I can pull in my S3 context and bring in all those values. Again, I wouldn't do that. I've already brought in the Snowflake ones, and I've brought in the company ones. I don't need S3 for this, but assuming you wanted to reference context that have been defined, you can pull it that way. Or you can create your own local context here, which should be available just for this job. So the ones that we pull in from the repository here can be shared across multiple jobs, and the ones that we add directly from the job itself are localized just to that job. So the scope of that is just for the job, whereas this is for every job that uses this context. And you can decide what situations make sense to localize your context to specific jobs, and what situations make sense to make global context that every jobs can use, right? If there's a common database that everybody gets access to, then we want to make those contexts more global. But if a job has a specific file path that no one else is using and specific just to that job, yeah, it might make sense to have that as a local context. All right, now we have our context, we have a job defined. So I'm going to run this job really quick so we can test it and see the results. So what it does, again, it takes some customer information, some others information, do an ELT push down. So we're pushing all this workload and taking advantage of Snowflake's processing capability. And at the end, we're generating our all the customer information, which is basically orders by customers. What are the customers ordering? So as the job runs, I'm going to switch over here to Snowflake and bring it on the screen, so we can see that insert is done. 9,099 records has been inserted. So Snowflake, let's just check and refresh. Now we see a new table, orders by customer, has been created, and I'm going to just select from that table so we can see the records that have been loaded. Okay, my data warehouse has been suspended. I think I need to resume that, and we can select the result. All right, so we have results into that table. All good. So one thing I want to call out, you can see my table has default underscore order by customers, right? And the reason for that is because if I go back to my job here and I select this component, and you can see that I'm passing the environment name here. And if we go over to context, I do have a default environment, which is the environment name is default. And so that's the default that's appended once we're creating that table in Snowflake. I'll put this side by side. And that's why we have default orders by customers. Now, if we run this across the different environments, so once we go through the promotion pipeline and we're running this in dev, we should see dev underscore orders by customer and prod underscore orders by customer. And the reason is we want to really show that we're changing those values as we move across different environments. Here in Studio, we can run a job across the different environments. So right now I'm running as default. I can select to run it as dev, and if I run this, it's going to create that. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and do it. I'll drop the table before we run this in Talend Cloud. So if you run this, now what this would do is it would use the dev context. Let's bring this over to the screen, and if I refresh, now you see dev run dev underscore that available. So that's running as a dev context. So you can imagine really being able to easily switch environments as you build your workflows and run within different contexts, and not having to hand code all the values or the variables you're working with. So let's drop that, the dev one, because we're gonna need it. I'm gonna have to recreate that again. So the dev is gone. All right. Now we have a job in Studio that we can run and switch environments or contexts to run this job. Let's push this job into Talend Cloud and see how we can promote this job across the different environments that we've created. So just to refresh, at the beginning of this video, we went into Talend Cloud and we created 2 environments. So if you can think about the SDLC lifecycle, we want to develop and push to dev and do all our testing in dev before we push to production to actually run our production workload. We don't want developers taking code and directly pushing it to production and potentially introducing issues or affecting SLAs of things that needs to go out. So we want to go through best practices, push to dev, test it in dev, make sure the job runs, and then once it's successful, once we can give a green light to it, then we use a promotion pipeline and directly push that into production, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So now the job that we have exists just in Studio. The first thing that we're going to do is publish this to our dev environment. But before you can do that, if you're using the enterprise version of Talend and you're working in the Talend cloud, before you can publish something to the cloud, you can always just check really quick to make sure that you're connected to the Talend cloud. And I am connected to the Talend cloud. If so, we're going to preferences, going on the Talend cloud, making sure that your username and your password is in them. There's an option to use token for authentication. So I have service available, so I'm all good, connected to my Talend cloud. Now Talend gives us that easy one-click button to push code from our local environment up to the Talend cloud environment, and we're going to take advantage of that. So let's go ahead. I think that went really fast. I'm going to close that and go slowly. So we simply select the job that we've been working on. We can right click the job, and below we have publish that job to Talend cloud, and that's what we're going to do. So go ahead, publish it to Talend cloud. Now because I'm connected to the Talend cloud, which I just saw a little bit earlier, we can now select the environment in the drop down where we want to publish this job. So we created the dev environment and the production environment. Now as a developer, I don't want to promote my code directly to production. Usually not a good idea. So let's start with dev and push this code to dev. We have the option of using different versions of the code. Right now I'm going with the default, but there's that idea of you can version the code and promote different versions, which really comes in very handy if you have different versions of the code. So let's keep it simple. I'll go with the current version and then promote that to our dev environment. So it takes a minute here and the job should run, build all the artifacts that we need, and the promotion to happen to the Talend cloud. Okay, so the video was paused and the promotion happened, and this is a notification we get on the screen once the promotion has been, or the publishing I would say, has been successful to the Talend cloud. So the Snowflake ELT job has been published to my Talend cloud environment. So now that the job is completed successfully, we're going to switch back over to Talend cloud to see how we can manage the job and do promotions across different environments. So the first thing we do once we get back to Talend cloud is we can observe that the job was indeed, or the artifact that we built was indeed deployed. So the job that we built, the Snowflake ETL that was published, has been published to this environment, which is FN dev environment. We can go ahead, we can execute this job, we can run the job, we can see the artifact from that job, and this really comes in handy, a screenshot, especially for debugging. If a job is running, you want to see what exactly the job was doing or what the layout of the job looks like. This screenshot really helps. Also the parameters that we define in the job, we can also see all the parameters available for us here to configure. Now because we define the parameters which are very dynamic and we want to execute this job across environment, the beauty of it is now we can always edit these parameters and change the values for the different environments that we're going to run on. For now, I wouldn't change them now because I think we want to go through and focus on the pipeline side of things. So I'm going to switch back over and look at promotions. So if we switch back to promotions, this is where now we can take the artifacts that we've deployed from dev, assuming that it's gone through a testing, and build a promotion pipeline to move those artifacts to a production environment. And a promotion is not something that everybody can do. So this is something that you're going to have to manage in your environment, dedicate somebody to do a promotion, and that person's job would be specifically to do the promotion. So here I'm going for my source being the dev and my target being production. We can give it a nice description always be very generous with your descriptions. So okay, so we can select that promotion. So here we have the name from dev to production, and that's the promotion that we've developed. But in order to make this work, we're gonna have to go select the promotion, go to promoters, and give access to me so I can have access to do the promotions, because without that I shouldn't be able to do promotions. So not everybody in the team should be able to promote things from lower environment to higher level environments. So now that I have access to this promotion, I should be able to run this and move artifacts from dev to production. Let's go back here and check something here really quick. I just want to verify that you can see, if I go to management, and you can see my different environments. So dev has my one artifact, as which we saw. Production has nothing. So once I do my promotion to production, you see bring a different workspace here and show us the dev workspace with the artifact in there, which we can then use to orchestrate and run them within the secure environment of production. So if we go back to our productions, we can click run, and the scope, let's do actually we just have an artifact. So we're going from dev and we're selecting the artifact, which is a snowflake. So the reason we're doing the artifact is that's the only job we had. If we had 100 jobs or 10 jobs or 50 jobs, we should see them all as artifacts here, right? You might want to promote the entire environment depending on the situation, but in this case I'm just gonna go with a simple artifact, right? Or if you had plans, you want to promote an entire plan, you can do that, or a task or a specific workspace, you have the control to do that. So let's stick with the artifact here and move that to, which is a snowflake. Analyze, it gives me a warning, permission needs to be set for the newly created workspace. So I've created a workspace, it doesn't have permission. So if I run this job, I think my promotion is not going to come in the way we should expect it to come, but I'm going to explain how we resolve that. Of course, I should see a different workspace here, which I don't see. So because I don't see my promotion successful yet, that tells me there is some permissions issues that we need to set. And the way to set that is we're going to have to go back to the environments that we set up and make sure that we give correct permissions to that environment or to the workspaces within that environment. All right, and the way we do that, we look at the workspace and select the production workspace, which is this production workspace, and just verify that I have the permissions to execute within that workspace. And we can also check on the dev one to ensure that I have permissions to perform the task within that workspace. So you can give permissions as needed. Okay, so that's the dev. Now that I know I have the right permissions granted to the workspace, we're gonna go back to our promotions and run the promotion. So now we don't see any warning of permissions given to us. So if the promotion runs, this should be successful. We can go back to management. Should take a minute. Right, so now we have that dev environment, the artifacts that we publish now available within our production environment. So the dev artifacts are available within production environments, and we can go ahead and schedule this. Now you can have different workspaces, or I could have kept this as the same workspace, or have it separate the way I do. You really have the choice to decide in terms of if you want to have different workspaces or just have it as one workspace within the environment. But now that I have this, we can go ahead and this is my production environment. Even though it's using the dev workspace, it's actually production. So I can select this artifact and we can add a task around this particular artifact to execute it every day, every hour, so the job can run. So I'll give it a tag, which is a demo description, and as the name, let's give it a name as prod, because we're working in prod. All right, we'll continue. All right, so now we can go live with the artifact, and that artifact should run. But once it's run, the thing that we need to do is it's going to run with the context that is still the default. So when this runs, I want to change that and edit the context, because we have control over all this context, and I'm going to change that to prod. All right, so I want to run it in the prod environment, because now we're working in FND prod, so everything else stays the same. And this is where, if you had your databases and other things that are pointing to different environments, quickly the admin can change all those configurations and allow them to run in the prod environment. So now this job, the one previously failed because of the database connection was different, so this should be this new one should be successful. Let's switch over and keep this handy in production. So a new table should be created here with prod, and this signifies that we're switching our environments to run this job. This takes a minute. Let's do a refresh, and voila, there you have it. So we now have our production environment. The job is running under the production environment. So if I select from prod, I see my results should be coming now from the prod database. So one single job, we've seen how easy it is. Just to summarize, let's go back, operations. I can see my workspace now, the production run, one successful, and then you saw the one failure. And the beauty is this failure occurred because I think the table already existed when I wrote it to Snowflake, and that's why. And I'm sure the error log should tell me somewhere in there. So when we look at the error log, there should be some information about the table already exists. So there you have it. Because I think my script was creating the table each time, and Snowflake doesn't like that. Something easy to fix on the ETL side. But the reason for this is you can easily see the debugging here, good error logs to tell you what to do to debug. But I have the one successful run which created the prod table. All right, so I think this gives us a good summary. Going back to the agenda for the presentation, we've covered Talend Cloud environment, so we can set up different environments in Talend Cloud: dev, test, stage, and production. Okay, so this is what we did. So we can set up different environments, and I went through that. Dev and production, you can set test, stage, UAT, depending on what your environment does or your organization does. You can set up different environments. We can build workflows in Studio and easily publish them to Talend Cloud, and we did that. And as building these workflows, we had context variables. Okay, now last but not least, we can go into Studio and build pipelines, and we saw how we went into Studio for number 3 and build promotion pipelines, and giving the access to promoters and being able to secure that with some restrictions, so only a few folks can promote. And once we have our promotion pipelines, we can execute that to move assets or artifacts or plans from dev, in this case, to production, or you can do from dev to test, test to stage, stage to prod. Depending on that, you can have multiple promotion pipelines for your organization. And now that the artifacts have been promoted to a higher level environment, production, we went in and was able to create a task around this to execute this on a schedule or manually, and that moved the data that was loaded and processed into some Snowflake tables where we can see results from the dev run and results from the production run. Alright, so thanks for watching this video. I hope this was a good summary in terms of promotion pipelines within Talend Studio. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment below. At the beginning of the video, I did reference this article available on the talend.com website. It's definitely a great read, definitely a good companion to this video. I'm going to leave it in the description below for those of you who want to check it out and get more details around it. And it also kind of talks about the different environments, so really great article. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be responding to those. So thanks for watching.